listening to Games from the Cellar, the board gaming podcast featuring authentic board game conversations. I'm Steven, your host, and tonight I was joined by John, Sam, and my lovely wife Adrienne to play Monopoly. So tell us about Monopoly, Adrienne.
Well, depending on where in the story you start, Monopoly was either first designed by Elizabeth J. Magie and patented in 1904 as the Landlord's game, or developed and patented by Charles Darrow in 1935. It was then published by Parker Brothers. Monopoly was awarded Game of the Century.
Game of the Century.
By the Toy Retailers Association. At the time of this recording, Monopoly has a 4.4 rating with 34,000 ratings on Board Game Geek and has a ranking of 24,539. But you know what? That goes to show you, rankings don't really matter because, get ready for this dad joke.
Oh, yeah.
The makers of Monopoly are laughing all the way to the bank.
To the bank.
Anyhoodle, it is a 2 to 8 player family weight game that should play in about 90 to 120 minutes. And it turns out if you follow the rules, that actually could be true.
So thank you for joining us in the cellar as we go in depth with Monopoly.
Quick editor's note. Something was jacked up with Sam's microphone, and he kind of pops in and out, so he's going to be hard to hear. We know that. We tried to edit around it. He's going to be really tough to hear at times, but we think the content's decent anyway, so try to enjoy and really strain to hear Sam.
The object of the game is to become the wealthiest player through buying, renting, and selling property.
That's why I grabbed the wheelbarrow, to carry my cash.
I'm going to hide the cash in my top hat.
I'm going to battleship. If this whole mercantilism thing falls, I'm just
going to blow us up.
I'm just going to fall back on capitalism's oldest friend.
War.
Yeah.
And I chose the shoe or the boot so that I can be a sore loser and stomp on your money.
I thought you just really wanted to enjoy the feeling of crushing the underclass.
Yeah.
So, Monopoly. This is like the bastard stepchild of Board Game Geek that everybody just
loves to hate. Yeah.
I definitely
go ahead.
I have some pretty negative associations with Monopoly.
It's just, I always, there's like a checklist that somebody will always make it a point to list. Here are the 7 things that are wrong with Monopoly. And a lot of them haven't, either haven't played it at all or haven't played it in 10 or 15 years. And
those lists aren't valid, though.
I'm just saying they might not be completely valid.
All right, so the only reason I agreed to play Monopoly was so that I could say to myself, I have played it by the rules. This is how I feel about it. Because, I don't know if I've ever actually played Monopoly with lots of different variants of Monopoly. The Zoo Tycoon version and the Star Wars version and
whatever theme happens to come down the pike.
Whatever theme happens to be there. And some of them have twists on the rules and some don't, but they're never really fun. And
see, but when I play with my kids, they absolutely love this game. And they're playing the Pokemon version, but the Pokemon version is just a transliteration. The rules are the same. It's just they've got Pokemon on it instead of Boardwalk and Park Place.
It is entirely possible that kids love Monopoly. But you know what? There are lots of things that kids enjoy that I don't.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying that there is some merit to the game if kids can manage to have some fun with it. Just butt in.
I am the last person that you have to worry about my assertiveness.
So, Monopoly is a weird thing.
Anyway, as I was saying, when I think about Monopoly, I think about family strife. It makes me, I get a little skeeved out, and it makes me think about fighting with family at Christmas time.
That's fair.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have both fond memories.
What were you going to say, Stephen?
I have both fond... You're really making this hard on the edit for me. Thank you. I have both fond memories and not so fond memories of Monopoly. And, the fond memories are great, and then the not so fond ones are awful.
You don't say.
Yeah, don't say. Yeah, it's just...
I mean, it's the nature of the game, right? There's no points. There's no objective. It's just whoever can crush the life out of the other players is the winner. Kind of by definition, it's a game that involves strife because it's not fun to lose. And Monopoly kind of goes out of its way to make it not fun to lose.
Well, I think part of the problem with Monopoly is it's like, I think the sweet spot in a game is when it's like 75% strategy, 25% luck. Like, I like to be able to make my own stuff happen. And I would say that in Monopoly, like, it's a reversed proportion. I think I would say that Monopoly is 75% luck in the very beginning. Like, which properties are you going to get? How many are you going to get enough to put the hotels on or not? And then after that, you're just basically...
Oh, for sure.
And I can't stand that.
I'm confident we will all have a lot to say about
I know
the
people
actual
that
rules.
are very good at winning Monopoly.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you one of them?
No.
I don't know anyone who plays Monopoly regularly enough to say they're good at it.
Well, it's not diplomacy level strife. I put this more on par with Acquire, where sometimes you just get bad polls, and sometimes you don't get as good a chance as other people, and that's on any given play that can happen. But that's part of games in general, short of like chess, where everything is completely, there's no luck in the picture at all. And I don't know. When I play with my boys, we end up not having a lot of strife involved. And I don't think any of us care that much if we win or lose. They're game players through and through, so they're accustomed to losing 1/4 of the time when there are 4 people at the table. And if you win, that's great.
Well, sure. And, that's because apparently you've, taught them to not be sore losers. Mm. But if you're at all susceptible to being a sore loser, Monopoly sucks.
Agree.
Because you go, okay, on my turn, I roll the dice, and I give you a bunch of money. I wonder what I'm going to do next turn. I bet I'm going to roll the dice and give you more of my money.
But they may be doing the same to you.
Yeah, they might be. And sure, there's like a bit in the middle of the game where you're like, oh, we're doing a back and forth. But inevitably, it becomes pretty clear who's going to win. And everyone else just waits to be handed the dice so they can give their money away.
Well, I think that's a big thing with Monopoly is you don't need to play it down to the last dollar. When there's a clear winner, it's like, hey, it's time to clean up the board and either rack it up and play again or put this one away and get the next thing out.
And that may be down to... well, I'm not sure how factual this is, but I've heard the story about how Monopoly was originally intended to be kind of like a satire of, boy, doesn't this suck? This is capitalism.
When it was the Landlord game before it
it
became
was written by
Monopoly.
a communist.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much truth there is to that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
It's pretty accurate. There's a whole history that you can dive into with this game.
But
at the beginning of the episode, we'll credit 2 different designers, just because there's a history to where it could be one, it could be the other.
It's really 2, but yeah. But the thing that came away from it is, regardless of what her initial intentions were with the game, that when people sat down to play the game, they went nuts. They went all in. Regardless of what her intention was, the people that were playing the game took it in another direction. So it ended up getting overwhelmed from any idea she had, and that's why Parker Brothers ended up picking it up, because they realized, hey, this is a game that people are making handmade copies and giving them to each other as gifts. So it's time for us to turn this into a product and start selling it. So there's Monopoly on top of Monopoly. I mean, it's 2 layers deep.
I think it's like super fun if you're able to win a game with not your own money, right? Like someone hands you $1,500, you play, you kill it, and you win. But when you're losing not your own money, I feel like I know I'm being negative, but I feel like that even sucks more.
I mean, there's a lot to like about Monopoly, where like you're trying to collect sets of different things, and you're matching colors, and then you get to put upgrades on them. and people land there and give you money, and every turn you're like, oh, what are they going to roll on the dice?
I mean, this sounds like the perfect game for Sam.
My God, it's a Sam's
set
game.
collection,
Yeah.
upgrades.
It's for a lot of people.
Yeah,
There's
collection.
dice rolling. I know you like dice rolling,
For
John.
a lot of people,
Absolutely.
those are positive things. You
Yeah.
have cards with random effects.
When you say for a lot of people, virtually every game player in the country plays Monopoly a whole lot more than all of the other games we have covered combined.
Well, it's zero sum, which is also part of it too. So every time we go around the board, $200 gets added into the mix, but at some point, somebody's going to end up with all of it.
And money does flow out.
And money does flow out with, what is it? Income tax and luxury tax.
Yeah.
And then some of the
cards.
chest and chance cards.
Yeah.
So
Paying for jail.
so it creates this, like you said, loop where eventually somebody's going to have everything. And as you said, like that it's not necessarily fun when it's kind of a dire situation if you're not that person collecting all the money.
You can kind of feel, at least in games where I've played of Monopoly, you can feel the tide turning against you, and you understand. Okay,
So are we going to play the game and
No,
speak to
we're just
our
gonna
takeaway,
we're just gonna
or
tear
are
it
we
apart.
going to talk about the takeaway before we've played the game?
I'd like to give it a shot.
yeah, let's give it a shot.
All right, so we're going to roll the dice on Monopoly. We'll be right back. All right, so I'm bankrupt. Who else is bankrupt?
I'm bankrupt.
I too am bankrupt.
I am flush with cash.
Yeah, John is the skeevy landlord that won't fix our pipes. There's a leak in the roof that he just won't take care of, but he's laughing his way all the way to the bank.
I got a guy coming on Monday.
I feel a stirring in the winds. Viva la revolution!
All right, so Monopoly. What do we think about Monopoly? It wasn't as bad as it could have been, right?
You know,
Is that what anyone said? Did anyone say it wasn't as bad as it could have been?
I made it a point to kind of pause in the middle and take a listen, and everybody was engaged and everybody was laughing, and you were all haggling around and banging it around. So I don't want to hear it. You guys actually had a good time playing the game. It may not be your favorite game in the whole world, but you did not hate this game. Nobody left the board crying. There was no crisis. It was a good play.
It was.
Sam, I want to hear it,
How do
Sam.
I want to put this? It was fun for the first
When you
time
had
and a half around the board.
Like during the buying phase.
Right.
No.
with the buying phase is fun.
You were having, you were working your angles with the greens, and you were working your angles with the aquamarines. You guys were having more fun than you guys all let on. Now, granted,
I feel like I was having less fun than I let on.
I told you, is it time to call the game? And Adrian's like, look, you may hit me down here in my hotels. They're cheap hotels, but they're hotels nonetheless. So no, we're not calling it yet.
So
We went a
you
little farther.
said that literally. So you said, hey, do we want to call it here, right? And then you rolled and didn't hit the hotels. And then she rolled and lost everything. And then Steven rolled and lost everything.
Right.
And then we called it.
And the only reason it lasted
don't be
is
like, oh, we called it. Wait.
no, I asked you guys to call it before that too. But the only
I maintain that there was a chance that
You had a shot.
The luck had gone in a
You
different
had a
way.
shot. Yep.
Listen, what I want to talk about is this policeman down here and the way he did me dirty.
he did all of us.
What I've learned-
kind of
So
dirty.
there's two
Yeah,
there's
don't
two
trust the
angles
cops
to
in
talk about here.
Monopoly.
There's
No.
like the way the game feels to play, and then the mechanics of it.
I think I had a huge lesson learning moment, which is don't buy the properties where there's only two, because I had the purples, Baltic and Mediterranean,
And the blues.
and the blues
And you had
Boardwalk
that
and Park
corner.
Place. So everyone else gets 3 properties, but I only had 2
Right, now
for
you'll-
both.
now-
And that policeman was down there
Catching people before they
sweeping
got to you.
everyone out of the way. I will never be a blue purple corner person
so
again.
everybody likes the idea of Boardwalk and Park Place because you get like $2,000 if somebody lands on it.
No one ever lands on it.
It's you got to get there, and there's only 2 properties, so everybody's chance is cut by a third of landing on you, and they cost a bundle to put together. So I typically like the purples and the mustard colored jobbies, New York Avenue, St. Charles Place groups, because they're cheaper to
there's-
build on, and you still get a pretty decent
there
payoff
is-
if you get 3 or 4 houses. on them.
There's definitely a favored side of the board because you're right. I mean, frankly, I think if we tallied up the turns spent in jail, it would be a significant percentage of
jail
time.
It
all
was
day
crazy
long.
amount of
I don't
jail
know.
time.
We had
know-
3 people in jail at one point.
I
all
don't
at the
know
same
if it
time.
was actually half of the turns of the game were spent in jail, but it was close.
There were so many doubles rolled.
We
Yes.
were rolling doubles all day long,
And
except when it was
so-
time to get out of jail.
And so you have this corner where it's like from jail to free parking and then to go to jail, people go through there reliably.
half of
That's
the
where
board.
all
that
of the
half of the
action
board
was.
is traveled. But the other 2 sides of the board did not see anywhere near as much traffic because
Yeah.
people were just going to jail and then making it, 1/4 of the way, half of the way, and going right back to jail.
And jail was not punitive. Jail was a
jail's not
relief.
punitive
Oh,
at all.
yeah, jail
So
is like magic in
Jail
this
is
game.
punitive
It's
for like the
complete BS.
first round. Like
Yeah.
when you're I want to go buy those properties.
I
Yeah.
literally want to play again so I can do better.
I don't want to play again.
So my thing was, and I didn't count how many times y'all passed go, but I surmised that I passed go at least half as many times as the rest of you
Right,
had.
'cause you advanced to
'Cause-
St. Charles.
Oh, I like
Well, no, no, no.
never
I
passed go.
always
Take
went-
a ride on the Reddit
I
or whatever it
always
was that
went
didn't let
to
you get
jail.
by.
I
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
went to jail. I'd
I'm
either
not-
land
you were
on
in jail all
jail
day.
or I rolled doubles. I rolled doubles a lot.
I'm not
Yep.
sure Steven made it around go. Like I don't know if it happened.
I think that I passed go 3, maybe 4 times the entire game.
And so let's talk about how the properties played out, because we played out, and I kept hitting chance of community chest. So I had like jack for properties. I had a railroad and some other. I forget
But you
what
were
it was.
still the first one with Monopoly.
But right, so I got darn lucky. I picked up the yellow on my first pass. On my second pass, I hit I got to put my glasses back on. I hit Atlantic, and then I rolled a 3, and I got Marvin. Suddenly, I had 4 properties, and I had a set. And excuse me, no, I had what did
You
I
had
have
one of the
down here?
railroads.
One of the ones that you wanted, Adrienne.
It was one of the purple ones.
It was one of the purples, and so I got this set, and I built a couple of houses, 1 house each maybe, and I cut a deal with you to get something else. No, to get cash, because I needed cash to build houses. So that was the first deal. As I said, okay.
I think what you're really saying is that was the first mistake that I made.
No.
No, I think that is.
That you
It
thought that
ended
was a
up
mistake?
being a mistake. But
It ended
could
up being
have-
a mistake.
Well,
it
what
could have
happened
gone
is,
the
yeah,
other
so
way.
then we all started talking trades, and we did some pretty solid trades here. And you're right, it could have gone either way, because somebody lands on there twice, and you go, well, that paid it for itself already. That worked out pretty well. And I got an early hit on the yellows, which let me build up a little more. And then for a while, you guys managed to keep dancing past it, but then I got a couple of big hits at the end, which closed the deal, because I was getting $800 with 3 houses on it.
Well, I mean that's just how Monopoly works, though, isn't it? Like you eke out a tiny advantage, and you win a little bit more, and you snowball, and then you win a little bit more.
But
and-
all of us, I thought, were playing hard, and nobody gave a free deal away. Nobody sat there and said, "Oh my God, I got this for a song." We were bidding on a couple of auction properties.
I did give Samuel $1 for free.
I also handed out $2 for
Yeah,
free.
he gave me $1 for some. Oh, you paid me $1 if I just roll the damn dice. and
You were
go.
just talking. I was like, just roll the dice.
All right, so to the things of note, we played strictly by the rules, which
Yes.
is something that most people don't do, and that's why games last 6 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say it was way shorter than I think we
We
all
we
anticipated.
figured it was about an hour and 15.
That was
All
about
said
how
and
long I
done.
expected
We
it to
had a
take.
break to put a baby to bed, but other than that, it was
Yeah,
it
and
rolled right
so
along.
and so, like I mentioned at the top, this is a zero-sum game with very little money that enters into the system. Any
Yeah,
money,
especially when you don't pass go.
yeah. So any money that you add to the system, be it from the free parking space with the extra $500, and then all the taxes that go in the middle, every time you add money, you're adding time.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that really lengthens the game time. The other thing that we did that most people forget to do, and honestly, I didn't know about this rule until like a couple of years ago when we played at Chris's house one time.
Mm-hmm.
If you land on a property that is unsold and you don't want
Choose
it,
not to buy it.
it goes on auction automatically. There's no
Yeah.
leaving properties
I
behind.
had no recollection of that rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was a rule but I've never
And
played that
we had
way.
one time where we bought the property and then immediately put it up for auction to see what we could turn it into money wise. But I don't think anything happened
we?
with that. I
We've
put
done
one
it in
up.
other games.
Yeah, I
Okay.
put one up, but I don't think anybody was interested. So it was too early in the game for it to
Yeah.
have any particular value.
But yeah, like when you, like if he were to buy the third color of a property, he could then try to fleece.
Well, and that's what it was. Each of you had one in that property.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the red, right? And I sat there and said, okay, this is up for, what are you guys willing to pay for it? And both of you were like, still too contested. You weren't willing to go after it. And I thought one of you would go after it so you would have two instead of one. But that, but that ended up not happening. So and the railroads all ended up in one hand because I cut a deal with you where I threw the railroad in to sweeten the pot.
Well, people tend to
And
think
it
the
paid.
railroads aren't as valuable.
Yeah, well, it paid. You ended up getting a couple $100 out of that when all was said and done.
I mean, the railroads are nice. They're a consistent $200, which is
And there's 4 spots to hit.
well, yeah, 4 spots, which is essentially what just about any of the properties are with 1 or 2 houses.
Yeah.
So, I like getting the railroads just because it kind of gives you a safe spot in every quadrant of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 200, if you have all 4 of them, is a pretty good deal. Yeah, it's not that snowballing effect once you have like 3 or 4 houses, but
They're cheaper too.
they're cheaper and
Yep.
they're going to pay you off earlier.
So I used it to sweeten a deal so that we could each get a Monopoly set. I was picking up red, you were picking up the mustard, and I put that railroad right next to that property and said, "Here you go. Here's a little extra." And then you said, "No, I want another $150." And I said no. And then the following turnaround, we did it again, and I said, "Okay, I'll pay you
Finally,
$150 just to get rid of it."
And honestly, in your mind, you probably would have gone to like 300. I bet you would have paid more. For
Nope.
that.
I was struggling to give you the 150. I thought it was worth
Speaking
100.
of your mind, that's mustard to you?
This is.
That is not what mustard are you using?
That's
is that
just
color?
orange.
Okay, we'll call
He's
that
referring to the
McLaren apricot,
Yeah,
perhaps.
McLaren
That's,
apricot.
I can,
That's
I
closer.
can get down with that. He's referring to the New York Avenue, Tennessee Avenue, St. James Place trio that I would consider simply orange, quite
It's
frankly.
just orange.
It's not
Yeah,
mustard, though. Just,
Maybe
Okay.
like a spicy mustard.
I'm thinking like
See, I would call
French's
the
spicy
community
mustard.
chest cards
it's kind
mustard.
of it's kind of irrelevant because that was actually for the purple color set, not the orange one. But
Was I trading in him the purple?
It was purple.
And I was getting red?
I gave him the orange.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Anywho.
Anywho,
So yeah, I mean,
there was a lot of wheeling and dealing, but frankly,
There was plenty of wheeling and dealing.
there
in
was
this game.
plenty of wheeling and dealing,
And there was
that's
no
fun.
deal where the other 2 people at the board said, "Oh my God, you just threw away the entire game."
Yeah.
So what I think we have done here is like broken 4 or 5 of the myths in this game. That it is wildly unbalanced, that one deal is what makes all the difference, that it's completely lucky regarding which you landed on, because we did a bunch of horse trading to get our pieces to the way we
I don't
wanted
know
them.
that I agree with any of that.
Agree with any of what?
What you just said.
Well, you always disagree with me, Sam. That's sort of your job.
You should try being correct more often.
Oh, that was kind of mean. Now I'm feeling
Dang.
hurt.
I'm just saying because we
So,
just
I feel bad,
established
except I
you
wiped you
right.
out in this
you
game.
did. What do you know? You
With
wiped out
3 properties.
everybody with the 3
With 3
property
properties.
set you picked up on the first round because you got lucky enough to land on 2 in a row.
I did, and at the same time, I did all sorts of trading to get
Yeah,
all
but
sorts
had
of
you
stuff.
never
rolled-
given him that other red.
had you rolled
It's really
any
your fault.
differently, then you probably wouldn't have gone out. So
But
I mean,
okay, but that doesn't mean. But I'm arguing that there's
Look,
what he said. Oh, one of the
late, even late in the game, Adrienne with Boardwalk Park Place, Baltic, and Mediterranean was saying, "Look, if I get a couple of people to hit me, I'm back in this." And I think she
was
legit
she,
was.
though? Baltic with a hotel. Baltic with a hotel is
$450.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, but he could have hit Baltic with a hotel, paid it, and continued on his merry way.
She had houses on
yeah, and then she
Boardwalk
could
and
have
Park
built
Place.
it. She could have
In my
improved
prime,
anything
I
else.
had houses on
and you
Boardwalk
could
Park.
have, and you. So with Monopoly,
Look,
there's a lot of back and forth, and that's fine. But the chance is everything. I think when before we played, I think it was John who said it's a game that's 25%.
This is what I said.
That was Adrienne.
Okay.
That was Adrian.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
disagree.
25% skill, 75% luck. And I totally agree because you're right. Any of those deals could have gone the other way.
And any time that you landed on the police jail jerk,
That
you
was
could have
pretty
not.
bizarre.
All right.
How
It was
How
bizarre.
many
So-
times we went to jail
I
between
think-
the doubles and the cop? We were just in jail the whole time.
Is that the way this game works? That is, you have kind of like the fun part and then the boring part. And the fun part is when you start, nobody owns anything, and you rush out onto the board and you buy up as much as you can. Properties get distributed, and you kind of settle down.
That's
And-
the boring part of the game where you just buy what you land on.
Yeah, but then you have to make the deals to try and shake out.
That's
okay,
when the game gets
what
interesting.
chance do I have to win? I have these properties. I need to complete this set, and I need to make a deal with Steven,
Well,
and
look-
he's got that one, and we've got to come to an
That's
equitable
the-
arrangement.
That's
It's like
the
we
interesting
said.
part of the game.
And then
part of the problem with this particular play was we spent a lot of time in jail, which effectively cut off half of the board,
and
which just
once-
happened to
AKA
be,
and
luck.
the other half wasn't making a whole lot of money
which just
either.
happened to be y'all's half.
right. So what I'm saying is, once that deal is made and it's roughly equitable, either side could come up on top.
Yeah, and that sounds
And
balanced to me.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds
I
balanced.
didn't say the deals were unbalanced. I'm saying the outcome of the deal is largely dependent on chance.
I completely agree with you. There was a period of time in this game where it was pretty even. I owned the corner where there was the blue and the purple. You had the light blue guys. You had this whole side was you. You
Yeah,
were
that was a
this
little
guy, and you had the green
Yeah, we
ones over
each-
there.
we each had
We really had everything even, and it came down to luck.
I landed on the yellow and I had to give John $800.
You kept going to jail.
Well,
I kept not collecting
it
$200.
is very easy to declare where the luck was after everything is all played
That
out.
doesn't make it any less true, though, does it?
Sure.
I
Sure,
mean,
I'm sitting there building
in
up
the
red.
in the
and-
state
and
of the
I- and I-
game, yeah.
And I have to manage to make sure that I do not. I had to keep enough money in my back pocket to cover Boardwalk, to cover Baltic and Mediterranean. So I can't build. So my reds are sitting there not being built until very near the end when you had gone out and I had picked up a pocket of cash from you, I could start building on them. But no, I had to manage my. So yeah, in
I'm
theory,
not saying there's
I had the lead.
risk management.
Well, then
I didn't think we were talking about risk management.
He just
the
sounds
entire game is risk management.
he just sounds like a sore loser.
Because he was the
he's
first
not
one
a
to go
sore
out?
loser. I completely agree with him.
I mean, yes, there is a lot of there is a lot of chance. That's the name of the game.
It's even one of the spots
It's
on the
even
board.
one of the spots. It's three of the spots of the board.
Quit counting. It's not worth it.
There's three.
There's three of them in here.
I think John did the best job of being the grown-up of the bunch. I
In
saw him.
spite of being, by the time everything was purchased, or more or less everything was purchased, I had 4 properties.
4 properties, and you were the only one to
Yeah, and what the first thing I did was give somebody else a monopoly so I could pick up cash to start doing work. So I was already doing work to get
But
houses onto the
you
board
arguably handed out the weakest monopoly,
for $400.
$400,
Yeah.
for a property that cost you $60 to buy.
Yeah, but there are games where those 2 properties will win you the game because
because
I'm
it's
just
so
I'm
darn
just-
cheap to build
They're
on.
so cheap. You can get hotels onto them with
Yep.
very minimal effort.
Yep.
And then every time someone passes go,
They've
there's
got
a
money
good
that they
risk.
can pay you with.
There's a
Yeah.
good
if
chance
you pass go.
if you
Yeah, if you
that-
pass go.
That's what I'm saying with this
Chance.
particular game. Half the board was cut off because of the amount of jail that was happening.
Right, and that's not the kind of thing that you
That's not very
plan
typical
for.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are you saying that it came down to
Chance?
chance?
Yeah.
the entire point of the
few
game
rolls
is
of the
to
dice.
have luck. But anybody who's listened to prior podcasts will tell you I don't mind games with luck in them. I don't mind games with dice. I think you saying 75-25 is crazy off. I think there's yep. You think this game is 75% luck?
Yes.
I don't think this game is
even more.
75%
Frankly,
luck.
I think I could probably have been replaced by a robot that rolls the dice and is willing to trade as long as it gets a monopoly, and done roughly as well. I think any of us could have been.
You know what I'm
You
hearing?
shouldn't be so hard on yourself.
I'm
Sam.
hearing that he just didn't play well.
He didn't play well.
I completely
Let's-
agree with you, Sam.
Let's be honest.
I mean, I'm not sure.
I'm not going to say the
I'm not
same
sure
thing
how I
about
could
my
have played
wife
better,
because
right?
No, because, in 2 hours you're going to be asleep and she's going to have a frying pan hanging over your head.
But no, really, like you make a deal that doesn't give the other player a monopoly, or that gives you a monopoly. And
I made a deal.
You know what's happening here?
I
What's
made a
happening
deal
here is
that-
the person who won the game
Oh yeah, that's a
wants
good point.
everyone to understand that he strategically
That's
won the
right.
game, whereas the reality situation is you won the game because you were in jail.
And he rolled a 3.
First of all,
Oh,
I
hold
was
on a
not in
second.
jail nearly as much. Steven should have won the game by a mile
No,
because
if
he was in jail
you-
half the stinking
you
game.
very strategically
Yeah.
bought 2 of the same color in the first round. Very strategic of you.
I did. That
If
was
only I'd
strategic.
had the foresight to do the same.
Well, you had your monopoly.
you did. You had plenty of monopolies.
You had two.
I had to
You had the
trade
set-
for all my.
You had the set right next to me.
You were the only player
He
who
did
did
not
not
get-
have to trade for Monopoly.
Okay. But then what did I do?
That's not true. He did.
I traded
He
a monopoly.
didn't have to trade for yellow.
He had to get the third yellow
Actually-
from somebody.
No.
Actually, I did trade for the second yellow and then got lucky and hit this.
That's right.
I purchased Ventnor.
Did he say that he got?
I think he
Lucky?
did just say
No,
he got
no,
lucky.
I
Pretty
landed
sure he
on
did.
Atlantic.
I'm pretty sure we have that on tape.
That's fine. I landed on Atlantic, and I said, okay, I might roll a 3, so I want to cut a deal for Ventnor now because it's not valuable now. So I cut a deal to get Ventnor, and then by luck, absolutely, I rolled a 3 and got Marvin Gardens. But I purchased Ventnor. I did not get Ventnor on my own. I said I got a shot at maybe getting a monopoly if I get lucky and roll a 3. And I forget who I bought. Did I get Ventnor off of you when I could? No. I already had
I
it.
would have never given you anything.
But you did.
I know.
So yeah, I did not land on all 3 of those.
Yeah.
Listeners, I'd love to hear from you about what percentage you think is luck and what percentage is strategy.
and I want to make it clear. I'm not saying it's bad.
Okay, so let me ask you the question another way.
Okay.
You're playing 4 people.
Sure.
One of you is a significantly superior player. Out of 100 plays, how often does that person win the game? Are you saying 25?
Significantly superior?
Yes.
I mean, I think probably.
So if everybody's even and it's a pure luck fest, it's everybody wins
that's-
25.
Who is this person?
Well, so that's hard to quantify.
Whoever,
because the skill.
the guy with the mustache,
But the
Mr.
point-
Monopoly.
But what you're getting at is dependent on there being someone who's that good.
So the thing is, the skill in Monopoly is not necessarily strategic game sense. I'm going to plan ahead and do this. Rather, it's this. A lot of it is social skill, right? I mean, if you're
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, so
That's-
yes,
if
negotiations
you're
are
just-
Did we just hear him on record using the word skill?
Skill.
Did we get a
I
recording
heard
of that?
did I
Okay,
avoid
fair
using
enough.
the word skill before? I don't think I did.
I don't think you did
But
either.
accusing me of using the word luck. Now
you're
I'm hearing
harping
you
on
use the
luck
word
and
skill.
I just,
So there's a lot of social skill because if there's one player who butter doesn't melt in their mouths and
And so in
they
a
can
game,
convince anybody
in a
into
game
any
where you
trade,
get, in a
they
game
will
where you
win.
got one player who is Mr. Social or Mrs. Social, is very good with social intelligence, and you've got 3 IT professionals, how often is that social person going to win out of 100 games?
well, I think we actually have that here right now, right?
so all right.
Yeah, you're pretty
That's
much right.
what pretty much happened.
pretty close.
And I lost.
I'd say probably a statistically significant number above 25%. I don't know
Okay.
if I'd go so far as half, but more than 25%.
35 maybe.
Yeah, 35, 40 probably.
Okay. And I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with games where, any given Sunday, somebody fumbles the ball and the better team loses because that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I just don't like it when fumbling the ball is you rolled boxcars or something.
So it's whether it's drawing a card or rolling a die or flicking a disc. That I mean,
No, I'm not saying Monopoly is a bad game and people are bad for liking it.
okay.
I'm saying I don't like it.
Which is fine. We
So
understand that.
if you had to give it a score from 1 to 10, it's time to make the call, Sam.
Oh boy, I mean, if you're gonna force me to do it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll roll the dice and let chance decide.
All right then.
And what do you know?
You rolled a 7.
I rolled a 7.
Okay.
So I guess
Wow.
that's what I'm going to give it.
So that's a 7.
Just a chance 7 for Monopoly.
Well,
From
on average.
What is clearly the worst skill player at the board because he
Clearly.
went out first.
Clearly.
Okay.
I've given it some thought, and I rate this game a 7
All right.
because if you're having a lucky day, it's really fun
to take everyone's money.
to take everyone's money. But if you're not,
Everybody was
it's
giggling in
fun
this
to
game.
watch your friends win.
I paused and sat back and listened to everybody giggling and talking about
I
screw
didn't say
you.
that I
I'm not
didn't have
cutting
fun. I
a
just
deal with
rated
you
it a
for all the
7.
love in the world.
I didn't say I didn't have
You
fun.
are
It's like
misinterpreting
So
our
what? So
point.
why did you come to play if it wasn't to have fun?
I
We're not
think
playing
we
for
did.
money.
I did have fun.
I
All
did
right,
have
fair
fun.
enough.
I
It's
think
just like
you're struggling with the fact that we are saying that your win was much because of luck.
yeah.
I agree.
I mean, it's not like I didn't have fun. It's just that the period of time we said we spent what, like an hour and a half on this? A little
Yeah.
bit more?
Yeah, maybe that.
And like
No more than an hour and a half, but yeah.
there are
could have
definitely
played 12 games that can't stop in that time
other
period.
games. Frankly, I would have probably had about as much fun playing 12 games that can't stop.
Actually, I like Can't Stop, so that
Like,
no,
that's
that's a
probably
lucky
okay.
game.
Yeah, that is absolutely a lucky
There's
game.
probably about as much luck and skill and can't stop as there is in Monopoly.
Do you guys find that you're a person who is lucky, or generally speaking, or unlucky? Like when it comes to games like this, I am historically unlucky.
I'm actually generally pretty lucky. This was kind of an outlier
That's
for
a
me.
religious statement, not a statement of fact. There's no such thing as a lucky person.
You should ask my my players about that. In Pathfinder on Sunday, let me tell you, we had a combat where I didn't roll below a 15. Like,
And see,
that's
he's
what dice do.
He's rolling behind a screen too.
I'm
so take
not
that what you will.
actually. I had to stop
No.
rolling behind a screen because I felt bad because I'd roll
Like
behind the
parking
screen and
spots?
be like, oh,
Yeah.
look, another hit.
See, my wife always tells me I'm lucky at parking spots, but that's because I drive slower than her in a parking lot and I see people pull out.
Now, I drive not slower than Steven. Steven does most things slower than me. And I get a good spot almost every time.
But that's what I'm saying. It's because you drive a little bit slower.
No, I don't.
Oh, you drive faster? Well,
Than
I
Steven?
don't know. I'll be
It's-
honest.
it is
I
for-
Does
think-
New York
I
drive
think-
faster than Mississippi? Yes, is
I
the answer.
think there is a science to parking spots. I don't think that's
She
as
does.
lucky as people make it out
she-
to me.
If she were to be a comic book character with a special ability, it would be finding miracle parking spots.
Okay.
That's her special
that's
ability.
It. It's not everyone tells me everything about themselves
Yeah,
in
that too.
5 minutes.
That too.
So, Steven,
So, all right. We said at the top of the show, and we've kind of gone a little more in depth with it. And Monopoly's a game that just unjustly gets panned for all the wrong reasons. People aren't playing it right, or
that's part of it.
they've got their bad memories, and they're just not giving it the shot that it deserves.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that this is a BGG top 100 game, but it's definitely a 7.
It's just a solid play.
It's just a solid game that if you play it by the rules, if you play it the way that it's supposed to be played, you can have a really good time.
I agree with that statement. I think that the one thing that made this play fun was that nobody was trying to pull one over. So it was just interesting to see where the chips land.
Yeah, and all four of us were willing to speak our mind. If somebody gave you a deal that was short, it's like, no, I'm not touching that. And so nobody was getting browbeaten, nobody was getting, and so I think that's part of it as well.
Oh, sure. I mean, because it's such a social game, it's really easy for somebody to spoil it.
Even coming towards the end of the game, where you knew you had a shot at Adrienne, it was fading, but you still had
I
a
shot
shot.
the moon, man.
You're like, come on, I don't want to roll these dice. Come on, and that's excitement. That's having fun in a game.
That was probably my favorite part of the game.
Yeah,
Was that this moment where I was like, I'm either going
Could
to
go either
lose
way.
everything,
Yep.
or I'm going
somebody's
to
going to hit me
win.
and it's going to work and I got a shot at this. And I'm certainly not going to claim that this is my favorite game by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not going to turn down a play. I've had great time with my kids. My kids actually seek it out to bring it out onto the table
Like
because they
currently, still today.
Yeah. Yep. And
Really?
my kids, the kids that I play with are 23, 20, and 20. These are not 8-year-olds, but they still enjoy Monopoly. They have great memories of playing Monopoly with their brothers and with their dad and with their sisters. So the game does get played, and I am fully understanding that I got caught a couple of breaks in this game. I think I made some good deals, but there's a couple of places where, hey, things went my way. People hit my properties when they could have coasted right on by and could have made all the difference in the world. And I did really well, and I built up, and then I had this dry patch when nobody hit me. And I'm like, oh, I gotta mark my time, gotta keep some dollars in case I hit something. And then you came back and you hit me again. And that's the luck of the dice, and that's the role the dice play in this game. Is they're the bad news deck that you have in other games where you turn over a card and suddenly there's a outbreak of an epidemic in Shanghai. These dice are what decide your good news and your bad news. You roll and then you move your piece, but there's no racing going on here. It's just a lucky roll, and that's what it boils down to. And I don't mind a game where even if I play well and I'm playing against a chowderhead who just can't figure it out, they end up winning the game because just sometimes that's how it goes. I like it that if I'm a better player, I tend to win more, but I don't feel bad if I don't win every single time, even if I'm a better player. I'm okay with that kind of chatter in the game. And frankly, Sam, I'd wager that 90% of the people that listen to us agree with you more than they agree with me, because I think you're a more mainline gamer. You're more of a hobby gamer.
So that chatter that you're talking about, where like
Mm-hmm.
the good player, the better player wins probably more on average, but not every time.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a good family game.
Yeah, exactly.
Is everybody still has a chance of winning.
And a good lightweight game, you get some people out, we got beer sitting on the table, and that's okay, because if you have a little beer, it's not a catastrophe. You're not going to play so poorly that it doesn't matter. So for me, this is a solid 7. It's not stunning. It's not awful. It's a game you can play with your relatives at Thanksgiving. The only thing I'd argue is get the extra money out of the game, because that's what makes it last 6 hours. So people say, it takes 6 hours. We played until 3 a.m. That's because you either played wrong or you just didn't play that long, because we played the whole game out an hour and a half. And frankly, with everybody in jail, we were sitting there forever with everybody just rolling dice and handing them to the next
just not
person.
doing anything.
Yes. So
that's a whole mechanical
Certainly not
discussion.
landing on my property.
Yes,
right?
right, exactly. So I think it's a solid game without being a stunning game, and I don't think it deserves the ugly stick that it gets hit with.
I mean,
most of the time.
that being said, Stephen kind of touched on this, for there's preconceptions about Monopoly and people don't like it and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if my view of Monopoly was changed by this playthrough.
Yeah, but you probably didn't have such a negative view of Monopoly to begin with.
As compared to some
there are
people.
people that, as soon as you say the word Monopoly, they just turn into vitriol.
Yeah, and they have their 6 talking points that they spill out that are nothing but rude epithets for the parts of the game.
We've talked about Monopoly before in the past, and you don't automatically go to the bad place when Monopoly is brought up in conversation. So your baseline
Show
is
me
already
on the dial where the game touched you.
your baseline is already higher than most people.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I
agree.
guess, but it
I say most people, but most people that are in the niche or in that board game geek /
Hobby
Reddit,
gamers,
the board gaming subreddit.
I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose, but I mean, like, the dial didn't move for me. This is. I'm not saying this is a game I will never ever play again. Like,
Last week you were talking about maybe not showing up,
I was serious.
and you showed up here and you were laughing and
And I'm
joking
glad
and giggling.
I showed up. But
Mhm.
if you said, Samuel, we're going to play Monopoly again next week, I'm busy.
Yeah, it won't be next week.
Now, I will say that one thing about playing Monopoly is it makes me want to play it again, because I feel like I've learned some things here today.
Right, you
like,
might
I
do a
want to
little
play
better next
you
time.
again for sure.
I-
You two, I don't really care. So
I don't
much.
feel that. I don't feel that urge at all. I have no. This is. I think Monopoly is good for. I mean, it's not bad, but I think Monopoly is good for actually teaching people how to lose.
Well, that's the whole crux of the game.
Because if you're
Yeah,
not
because
good
you-
at losing gracefully,
And fundamentally, nobody wins Monopoly. It's the person who survives the longest.
yeah. Well, the one person wins Monopoly. Everybody else loses hard.
Well, but you win Monopoly by being the last person to run out of money.
But there's definitely a very visceral, unpleasant feeling when you land on a space and you know it's going to cost you money you don't have, and you have to look at what you've built up and parcel it out and say, okay, this is what I'm losing because
it's
I
never
landed.
fun to liquidate your properties.
And that's not fun. And I remember playing this game as a child and hating that feeling.
Well,
but I got better at losing because of it.
The one thing and that's a point. And I've argued that oftentimes you play until the first person liquidates, and then whoever has the most value wins, so that you're not going through that tortured effect over and over.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, at the point when I was out, I think if we rewound to that point in time, you win 90% of the time from that point.
And that's when I first argued, said, we can call this now if you want.
Yeah, because you end up with a boatload of money that you could then reinvest.
Right. Suddenly you have an $800 hit, a $1,200 hit, and now you start stacking houses, and it starts getting ugly. Yeah.
So yes, there's kind of a runaway leader problem, and that's
provided you
honestly,
play it to the end.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the only real gripe that I have about this is once the end game comes around, there can be a runaway leader problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If it weren't for luck, we would have. You and I would have been like it would have been you versus me.
Yeah, and that's when I made that first offer to you. I'm like, let's cut Yingle and Dingle out of the package, and it's between you and me.
Faux shiz.
Yeah.
Am I Yingle or am I Dingle?
I'll let you two pick. I was thinking you were Yingle, but I can go
I do want to be Yingle, actually. Okay. That sounds better.
We'll Rochambeau for it.
Yeah.
So that's Monopoly.
That's
the
Monopoly.
Traditional game by the official rules.
Yep.
I'd be happy to never again play with adults, but if I ever have children, I'll probably use it to teach them how to get over themselves.
And I think you're going to play again with adults at some point in your life. It's an iconic. It's part of the culture. It's get out of jail free. It's do not pass go. Do not collect $200. It is a part of the language that we all share.
That's fair. I'd be happy to never play any variant of classic Monopoly ever again. But if somebody was like, "Nah, this is great. They tweaked the board and the cards do different things."
Oh, we'll get the expansion.
2.0, yeah, with an expansion.
There is an expansion.
So
there's an expansion.
In what way would you expand upon
I'd read
this?
the rules first.
Oh, there's a couple of different.
I don't normally do that for expansions, but
so actually, in the next few months, there is going to be a Scrabble Monopoly that comes out.
Okay.
Where the middle of the board is a Scrabble board, and based on what words you are able to play is how you move. So there's no dice rolling.
Oh, see, that sounds
I
fantastic.
will 100% come back.
Oh yeah,
and
I would play that in a heartbeat. That's a totally different game.
I think that's how that works. I'm not
lose
like
that's because I am awful at Scrabble.
That's a totally different game because at that point you're not rolling the dice. You're saying I'm going to spell this word so I can go 5 spaces.
Well, that's assuming you've got the tiles for it.
But at that point it's not as random.
Yeah. You have a little more control.
You've neutered the randomness.
I don't know what Scrabble tiles you pull, but I always get all Y's and Z's, and there's just not a whole lot I can do with them.
Even then, you still probably have a choice between going, like if you rolled 4 dice, and you could choose between 2 numbers on how far you went from Monopoly, the game would totally be different. And I feel like Scrabble's going to give you at least that much control.
Because nobody would hit each other. I think the reason this game still sells 100 years later is I think there's a lot of very casual gamers out there that still enjoy playing. In spite of all the complaining they do, they come back to the game.
Well, frankly, there's a lot of gambling here.
Well, and frankly, again, like there are a lot of people that aren't exposed to Board Game Geek and the board game subreddit to know,
or Target, where you walk in and there's now 100 games to choose from.
What I'm saying is, they aren't exposed to
they haven't
the
been
hobby
told how
board
bad
gaming
the game
crowd
is.
that basically says Monopoly is the worst game ever made. And their family, it's the game they play.
Yeah,
and
it's
to
Thanksgiving
them,
tradition.
It's a
and
treasured
there's
experience.
a Monopoly of every flavor.
Yeah,
right. So you buy it, and it's a
Monopoly Legacy. That's what they need.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure different flavors of
Rob
Monopoly
Davio,
Legacy
get on that.
exist.
Wow.
So yeah, let's go ahead and end it. Final thoughts before I turn off the mics.
Don't bank on the blue and purple corner.
Yeah, I think the takeaway here for playing Monopoly, there's a weak side and a strong side. I didn't think about that before.
And that
That's the whole
policeman's
game.
can I say the A word?
Sure.
That policeman's an asshole.
Well, look at him. I mean,
We didn't even go into the social commentary.
that corner smells like bacon.
Smells like a pig.
There
Yeah.
should be an option where you can pay $200 to go to jail.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that's Monopoly. It's not as bad as you think. So give it a shot.
worse.
Yeah, play by the rules, give it a shot, and you might find that if you don't take it too seriously, you have a good time.
John, Sam, Adrian, and I thank you for joining us in conversation about Monopoly. You can join the conversation by visiting our website, gamesfromthecellar.com, where you can find links to our social media and Discord server. The Pick Our Play poll for July is about to close. You have until June 30th to join us in our Discord to vote on the game you want us to play. We look forward to hearing from you.